I knew the sound of her laugh before I ever saw her. Low, unhurried, the kind of laugh that made silence lean closer just to listen. When I finally met Clara, she wasn't what I expected. My girlfriend had described her as complicated, the word people use when they're not sure if they admire or resent someone. But the moment Clara turned toward me, wine glass in hand, I understood why no one knew what to do with her. She carried herself like she'd already lived every story in the room, and didn't owe anyone an explanation for how it ended. She didn't flirt. She didn't need to. Her presence did the work. The first time we spoke, it was in the kitchen, after everyone else had drifted to the living room. She stood by the counter, sleeves rolled to her elbows, a faint line of flour on her wrist. I remember the smell, vanilla, something baking, and the small sigh she let out as she rubbed her neck. "You don't talk much, do you?" she said. I shrugged, pretending to find something interesting in the sink. "I talk when it matters." Smart answer. Her lips curved, not quite a smile, not yet. "You're different." Her words landed heavier than they should have. I didn't know then why my chest tightened, or why I noticed how her hair fell loose against her collarbone. She had that way of looking at people that made you straighten up, not because she asked you to, but because you wanted to meet her gaze on equal ground. She poured me a drink without asking and slid the glass across the counter. Her fingers brushed mine. Light, almost accidental, but it lingered, long enough for my pulse to change rhythm. "Your girlfriend's lucky," she said, looking down at the glass. "You listen." I tried to say something clever, but the words tangled. She noticed, of course she did, and laughed softly, the same low sound I'd heard earlier. "You blush easy," she teased. "I don't." "You do." Her eyes lifted to mine. Steady, unhurried, a little amused. "It's kind of nice." For a moment, the air felt too close. The sound of the others talking in the next room faded, replaced by the soft tick of the kitchen clock. I wanted to look away, but she didn't give me the chance. "What is it?" she asked. "Nothing." She tilted her head. "You sure?" I wasn't. Something about her felt like a question I shouldn't answer. When she turned to check the oven, I finally exhaled. She moved with the kind of ease people earn only after life's knocked them around a few times. No wasted motion, no pretending. The light caught her skin, the faint lines near her eyes, the unpolished grace of someone who doesn't need to be seen to know she's worth seeing. Then the door creaked open. Her sister's voice, bright and careless. "You two hiding in here?" Clara's hand froze on the oven handle. "We're just talking," she said, too quickly. Her sister laughed, eyes flicking between us. "Right? Talking." Then, with that smirk, half amusement, half warning, she added, "She doesn't deserve a guy like you." The silence that followed was thick enough to taste. Clara didn't look at me. She didn't move at all. Not even when her sister's footsteps faded down the hall. Only her fingers tightened around the handle, just once. And when she finally spoke, her voice was quiet enough that I almost missed it. "Don't listen to her." But she didn't sound convinced. And I didn't know whether to leave or stay exactly where I was. It was easier to pretend nothing had happened. For a while. 3 days later, Clara came by to drop off a sweater her sister had left at her place. That was the excuse, anyway. I was alone. Her sister had gone out for the evening. Clara didn't ask where. She just stood at the door, holding that folded gray sweater like it mattered more than it should. "Can I come in for a minute?" she asked. I nodded too quickly. She stepped past me, the faint scent of her perfume brushing the air, warm, subtle, a mix of jasmine and something sharper underneath. She placed the sweater on the arm of the couch and lingered there, tracing a thread loose at the seam. "You two still good?" she asked. I hesitated. "We're fine." "Fine," she repeated, as if testing the word. That's not much of a promise. There was no judgment in her tone, just quiet observation. She had that way of saying things that made you want to be honest, even when you shouldn't be. "She's been distant," I said finally. "Work, I guess. Or maybe just life," she finished for me. "It happens." When she smiled, it was tired, the kind that comes from knowing too much about what happens after the spark fades. I wondered who had done that to her, who had made her so careful. She noticed my stare and straightened, crossing her arms. Don't look at me like that. Like what? Like I'm a mystery you want to solve. I swallowed hard, said nothing. She turned toward the window, hands resting on the sill. I used to think love was about the right timing, she said softly. Then I got older and realized it's mostly about luck. And who's brave enough to say what they want before it's too late. The words hung there between us, heavy and close. I should go, she said after a moment, but she didn't move. I stepped closer. Not enough to touch, just near enough to feel her shift. Her breath caught, a subtle sound that felt louder than it should have. She glanced up, and our eyes met in the reflection on the glass. Her voice was low. You're too young to get tangled in someone else's regrets. I don't feel young right now. That made her turn, finally facing me. The distance between us felt like something alive, a heartbeat waiting for permission. Her hand lifted slightly, stopped halfway, then fell again. Clara, I whispered. She closed her eyes for half a second, just long enough for the silence to tighten. Then she reached out, not to pull me closer, but to brush a bit of lint off my shirt, fingers grazing my chest, lingering just a breath too long. See, she said quietly. That's already too much. But she didn't move away. And when the silence came again, it wasn't empty. It was full, charged, fragile, and impossible to step out of. The storm started just after dark. Wind pressing at the windows, rain sliding down the glass in thin, hurried lines. Clara had come by again. Her sister had forgotten her charger this time. Another excuse that neither of us believed. She stood in my living room, damp hair clinging to her neck, her coat still dripping faintly onto the rug. I'll wait until the rain eases, she said, glancing at the door. It's getting worse, I said. Her lips curved slightly. Then I guess I'm staying a bit. The lights flickered once, then steadied. The only sound was rain and the faint hum of the refrigerator. She moved closer to the window, rubbing her hands for warmth. I grabbed a towel from the hallway and held it out. Here. She took it slowly, her fingers brushing mine. Just a small touch, but it landed like a jolt. She began drying her hair, then stopped halfway and let out a low, almost embarrassed laugh. I hate storms, she said. Always have. They make me feel... She trailed off, searching for the word. Small, I offered. She looked at me then, really looked, and nodded once. Yeah, small. Something about that honesty cracked the air between us. The room felt too quiet, too close. I sat on the couch, pretending to scroll through my phone just to keep from staring. She joined me after a minute, sitting close enough that her knee brushed mine. Your girlfriend, she said softly. Does she know how you look at people? I turned to her, startled. What do you mean? The way you notice things. The way you listen. It's dangerous. I laughed nervously. I think you're giving me too much credit. Am I? She said, tilting her head. Because you're looking at me right now like you want to say something you shouldn't. I did. Every word in my throat was the wrong one. Before I could speak, my phone buzzed. Her sister's name lit the screen. Clara froze. Neither of us moved. The phone kept vibrating, the sound too loud, too sharp in the quiet. Answer it, she whispered. I didn't. When it finally stopped, she let out a shaky breath. This is bad, she murmured. I know. Her hand was still on her lap, fingers twisting the towel. Without thinking, I reached out and stilled them. Her skin was warm, trembling slightly. She looked down at our hands, mine over hers, and for a long second no one moved. Clara! Her eyes lifted. Close now, closer than before, the kind of close that steals air and reason. Her breath brushed my cheek. Then, a knock on the door. 3 sharp knocks that snapped everything apart. Her hand vanished. She stood too fast. That's her, she whispered. I went to the door, heart pounding. It wasn't her sister, just a neighbor dropping off a misplaced package. When I turned back, Clara was standing in the middle of the room, eyes wide, chest rising too quickly. You should go, I said. But the words came out wrong, like I didn't want them to. She stepped closer instead, close enough for the air between us to hum again. Next time, she said, voice barely above a whisper. Don't stop me. And then she was gone, door closing softly behind her, leaving the rain, the silence, and the pulse still beating in my throat. A week passed like a held breath. Every message from her sister felt like a test I hadn't studied for. Every silence between them stretched like a wire ready to snap. Then one night, Clara texted me. Can we talk? Just for a minute. 10 minutes later, she was at my door again. No excuses this time.
No suéter, no charger.
Just her. She didn't come in right away. She stood under the porch light, the shadows sharp around her face, rain threatening again in the air. I shouldn't be here, she said quietly. I know. Then why did you open the door? I didn't have an answer that wouldn't sound like the truth. She stepped inside anyway. The room smelled faintly of coffee and rain. I noticed how tired she looked. Not the kind of tired that sleep fixes, but the kind that comes from fighting yourself too long. You've been avoiding me, I said. She gave a humorless smile. I thought it'd help. Did it? No, the word landed heavy. She walked to the window, arms crossed, and stared at her reflection. I could see it too, the lines of her face softened by the glass, the sadness that never asked for pity. She told me, Clara said after a pause. My sister. She said you've been distant, that maybe you've already checked out. I took a slow breath. And what did you tell her? She turned then, and whatever wall she'd been holding up finally cracked. I told her she was right. The space between us folded in. She moved toward me, hesitant, then certain. Close enough that I could feel her warmth even before she touched me. I can't stop thinking about that night, she whispered. The rain. The way you looked at me. I swallowed, every word caught behind the one thing I shouldn't say. She stepped closer, voice lower. Say it. What? Whatever it is you've been holding back. Her hand lifted to my face, fingers trembling just slightly as she brushed my hair from my forehead. My chest tightened. Clara? She looked up at me. That quiet, unreadable look she had when she was about to do something reckless. I keep trying to forget you, I said finally. But it's getting harder. Her breath hitched. You're making this impossible. I know. For a heartbeat, neither of us moved. Then she leaned in slow, uncertain, her lips just shy of mine. The world outside disappeared. No sound but the rain beginning again, the rhythm syncing with my pulse. Then a flash, her phone lighting up on the table beside us. Her sister's name again. Clara froze. Her forehead rested against mine, breath shallow, eyes closed. This is wrong, she whispered. I don't care. She drew in a trembling breath, then pulled back just enough to look at me. Her voice was almost gone when she said it. Then you'd better be sure. The rain hit harder against the windows. Neither of us moved. The distance between our mouths was no more than a breath. 1 second from ruin or something like it. The next morning, everything felt slightly tilted, as if the night had left a mark the light could now see. I hadn't slept. Every sound outside, cars, footsteps, a dog barking, felt like something approaching. Then came the knock. When I opened the door, it wasn't Clara. It was her sister. She looked calm. Too calm. Hey, she said. Mind if I come in? I hesitated. She told you? Her eyes flickered. Told me what? That pause was long enough to sink a dozen stories into. She stepped past me, her perfume too sweet, too sharp, the opposite of Clara's quiet scent. I stopped by Clara's place this morning, she said casually. She wasn't exactly herself. Kept saying she did something stupid. I froze. She wouldn't say what, her sister continued, turning to face me. But then I remembered where she was last night. She smiled, that same smirk from before, only now colder. Relax, she added, voice dropping. I'm not judging. She's always been the dramatic one. But her eyes were studying me, searching for confirmation she already had. Before I could respond, The door opened again. Clara. Her expression when she saw her sister standing there. It wasn't shock. It was defeat. "What are you doing here?" she asked, voice low. "Returning the favor," her sister said lightly. "You've been so interested in my boyfriend lately. Thought I'd check in on him." The silence that followed hit like a slap. I tried to speak. "It's not." Clara cut me off with a look. Not angry, just broken. "You told her."
No.
"I swear," she guessed. But she was already shaking her head, stepping back toward the door. Her sister laughed softly, enjoying every fracture. "Oh, come on, Clara. You think he'd actually choose you? You're—" "Stop," I snapped, louder than I meant to. Both turned toward me. The room felt suddenly smaller, air thick, heavy with everything unspoken. Clara's hands were trembling, fingers twisting the strap of her bag. "This was a mistake," she whispered. I moved toward her instinctively. She flinched, not away, but inward, as if trying not to show how much she wanted to stay. Her sister watched, fascinated. "Clara," I said quietly, "please." She met my eyes. Just one look, full of guilt, longing, and something that still burned underneath all of it. "I can't do this," she said. "Not like this. Not where she can see it." Then, to her sister, barely above a whisper, "You have no idea what you've done." She brushed past both of us, shoulder grazing mine. Soft, charged, electric. At the doorway she paused. The rain had started again. "Don't follow me," she said. But her voice cracked halfway through, betraying the lie. Then she was gone into the rain, leaving behind the smell of her perfume, the echo of her breath, and her sister's quiet, knowing smile. And I realized, whatever line we hadn't crossed before, we were already on the other side of it now. 2 nights passed before I saw her again. The city had that wet, heavy quiet after rain. Streetlights flickering off puddles, the world half asleep. I found her where I knew she'd be. The cafe near the pier, nearly empty. Her coat draped over the chair beside her like she'd been waiting for someone to fill the space. She didn't look surprised when I walked in. Just tired. The kind of tired that comes after fighting what you already know. I sat down across from her. Neither of us spoke for a moment. The hum of the espresso machine filled the silence. "You shouldn't be here," she said finally, eyes fixed on her cup. I had to be. Her fingers traced the rim of her mug, slow, deliberate. "My sister thinks you're done with her." "I am." That made her look up, sharply, like the words hit her too fast to catch. "Don't," she whispered. "Don't say that for me. I'm saying it because it's true." Her jaw tightened. "You don't get it. If she finds out—" "She already knows," I said quietly. "She just doesn't know why." The air between us shifted. She leaned back, shaking her head, but her eyes didn't leave mine. "This can't end well. It never does. I don't care how it ends." She exhaled, closing her eyes. "You will." I reached across the table, hesitated halfway, then let my hand fall onto hers. She didn't pull away this time. Her skin was cold, not from fear, but from everything she'd kept inside too long. "You think this is about wanting?" she said, voice trembling. "It's not. It's about being seen for once. About not pretending." "I know," I said. "That's why I'm here." Her eyes glistened, but she blinked it away, shaking her head again. "You're too young to understand what happens after moments like this." "Then show me," I said, leaning in, not touching, not yet, just close enough that she could feel my breath against her skin. "Show me what happens next." She laughed once, softly, but it broke halfway through. Her hand slid from under mine, only to rest against my wrist instead. The warmth of her palm moved slowly up my arm, deliberate, trembling. "Don't do this," she whispered, even as she didn't stop. "I already am." Her breath hitched, a small sound that felt louder than everything else in the room. She leaned closer, so close our foreheads touched. The world around us dissolved. No cafe, no noise, no clock counting down the moment. just the weight of what we hadn't said pressing between us. For a long time, neither of us moved. Then she whispered, "If we cross this line, we don't come back. Then don't stop me." Her lips parted. A breath, a tremor. And for one suspended heartbeat, everything aligned. The wanting, the guilt, the relief of being seen. She closed her eyes. And instead of a kiss, she pressed her hand flat against my chest, feeling the rhythm there, and whispered, "Now you know." Then she stood. And this time, when she walked away, it wasn't running. It was choosing. Spring came early that year. The city was softer, air warmer, light stretching longer in the evenings. But it had been weeks since I'd seen Clara. Long enough for the space she left to start feeling permanent. Then, one afternoon, she walked into the bookstore where I worked. No warning.
No pretense.
Just the quiet click of the door and the sound of her voice saying my name like she wasn't sure she had the right to. "Clara," I said, too quickly, too relieved. She smiled. Faint, nervous, beautiful in a way that hurt a little. "You look tired," she said. "You always say that. It's always true." For a moment it was awkward, like two people pretending to be strangers when both already knew better. She looked around, brushing a strand of hair from her face, trying to steady herself. "I wasn't sure I should come," she said. "But I kept thinking, it'd be worse if I didn't." I nodded. "I'm glad you did." The store was empty. Afternoon light filtered through the big window, catching the dust in the air. 1,000 tiny particles floating, slow and aimless. We stood in that golden quiet, the world shrinking to the space between us. "I thought I ruined everything," she said. "You didn't." She looked at me then, really looked the way she did that first night in the kitchen. "I hurt her," she whispered. "And I hate that. But I couldn't lie to myself anymore." I took a step closer, hesitated. "What did you tell her?" "The truth," she said softly. "That I cared for you. That I didn't mean to. But I did." Something unknotted in my chest. The ache, the waiting, the what-ifs that had filled every sleepless night since she left. "She said she never wants to see me again," Clara added, voice shaking just a little. "But maybe that's what has to happen. Maybe we both needed to stop pretending." I reached for her hand, slow, cautious, and she didn't pull away. Her fingers tightened around mine like she'd been holding that touch in her mind for weeks. "Clara," I said quietly, "I don't care what anyone thinks." She laughed softly, eyes glistening. "You say that now. Give it time. Then I'll give it time." Her smile grew small, fragile, real. She stepped closer until we were inches apart, the warmth of her body brushing against mine. "I'm not running anymore," she whispered. "I know." For a long moment, neither of us said another word. She leaned into me, her forehead resting against my shoulder, my hand finding the small of her back. The noise of the street outside faded. Only our breathing, steady and uneven, filled the quiet. When she finally looked up, I brushed my thumb across her cheek. Her eyes met mine, calm now, no guilt, no hesitation. And when I kissed her, it wasn't reckless or forbidden anymore. It was something that had waited, learned, survived. Something that finally made sense. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?